Hey guys, Doc here, ready to talk about another retro review. This time we've got the first two issues of StormWatch, which was one of the original Image titles. This is written by Brandon Choi with a story assist by Jim Lee and art by Scott Clark with inks by Trevor Scott. So let's take a look at it for a minute. Alright, so I managed to pick up the first two issues of StormWatch yesterday. The first book is in pristine condition. The second issue, not so much. But here we've got an early Image title with art by Scott Clark and inks by Trevor Scott. So you've got this huge, explosive, energetic art that you had come to expect. I would say a Jim Lee-like art. So almost an X-Men Jim Lee version style that Scott Clark and Trevor Scott are trying to emulate here. But the story was actually really good. I was surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been, because Brandon Choi was a really good writer in the time that he was working for Image and working with Jim Lee. He always crafted really interesting stories that you could count on to be fun romps through whatever universe he was doing, whether it be StormWatch or later on he re-tag teamed with Jim Lee to bring Fantastic Four back into the fold during the Heroes Reborn saga. But anyway, you've got this energy, you've got this story, and you've got a hero who is ready to retire. Jackson, aka Battalion, is on his way out. He doesn't want to be a member of StormWatch anymore. He's ready to resign his commission. He's ready to just go be a civilian and stop having to deal with saving the world. Meanwhile, his younger brother, Malcolm, gets in trouble with the wrong crowd. And Battalion has always tried to watch over his little brother and make sure he's safe. But this time he got into a situation where he was hanging out with a couple of friends and they decided to break into an electronics store. And if not for the diplomatic immunity of Battalion that extended to his family, then Malcolm would be sitting in jail right now. Meanwhile, we have a situation on Skywatch, which is the giant orbiting space station that is hanging out above Earth, where Weatherman 1, who is watching over all of these, as they call it in the story, geopolitical figures, like Battalion and his group, and the soon-to-be-seen Cannon and his group, then you've got this world that it builds up where not even a funeral is sacred. And Death Trap, I should say, Death Trap and his group come to the funeral of one of Battalion's greatest allies who died at the beginning of the first issue. And instead of coming to show support, they come to try to kill the team. And that leads Christine to activate Jackson's brother Malcolm to become so much more than he ever had been before. So that first issue, you've got a really cool setup of a story where you see family intrigue, you see a man who has done his time for his country, done his time for his fellow man, and he's ready to step away. But it just seems like things are going to keep bringing Jackson back into the fold, whether he wants to be or not. It's kind of similar to like an Old Man Logan story or something like that, where Logan is ready to retire. He just wants to sit down and have some peace in his life before the end of his life, and the world just keeps dragging situations out that only he can fix, only he can save. So now we have StormWatch issue 2, and it says introducing Canon and Fahrenheit. So you get the continuation of the transformation of Malcolm into something greater, which means that Death Trap and his team want him even more, because now it's another operator that's been activated. So you go back to Skywatch and you see Cannon and his team who are getting sent to Chernobyl to try to figure out what's going on at Chernobyl, because you got to remember this was only about 7 years removed from the Chernobyl incident in Russia. So that's still fresh on everybody's mind. So Russia and their secrecy with trying to keep the Chernobyl nuclear incident a secret, they were still, the USSR had now fallen since Chernobyl, but they were still not trying to let the world know what had happened. They were trying to keep everything as hush-hush as possible because, some countries are forthcoming and open with information, and some countries keep their greatest failures and secrets well within their vest and keep their cards, within their vest so that they can't be used against them at a later point. But anyway, you got this cool Wizard ad. It was funny because Wizard was the primary pusher for Image in its formative years. So you've got really cool advertising with that. And then you see right at the very end when it looks like Death Trap and company are going to get the upper hand and kill Malcolm, then you have these two new operators that have come from StormWatch or Skywatch to come and assist and save lives. And that causes Death Trap and company to dip out. They've seen enough. They said, we've done what we've come to do, which apparently was make sure that Malcolm was activated. Meanwhile, you still have Cannon and Jackson at odds with each other because Cannon is supposed to take over for Jackson when Jackson retires. Cannon is supposed to be the new battalion. Then you have this double-page spread from art by Mark Teixeira, story by Mike Heisler, and co-created by Jim Lee of Union, which was another Image title that came out early. So at the very end of the second issue, Jackson is determined, I'm going to leave StormWatch. I don't want to be here anymore. I have done my time. I've served my time. I want to be with my family. And at the end, you see the return of Battalion, who says, I'm going to come back for this one last mission. Let's go. Lives are on the line. We've got to get this done. And then you also see this cool black and white and color of Gen 13 before Gen 13 became a thing, and you've got Jeffrey Scott instead of J. Scott Campbell signed up to do the art, with Alex Garner being the inker. So you've got this really awesome opening of a hero who doesn't want to be a hero anymore. You've got lives endangered. You've got new heroes activated. All of these things come together to make a pretty interesting story. So, and by the way, this first issue cover is actually by Jim Lee, and the second cover was also penciled by Jim Lee with Scott Williams on inks, I believe. So, that helped build Image into what it became. That made it very interesting and very important to continue Image as it was, a fledgling company. So, many thanks to Brandon Choi, Jim Lee, Scott Clark, Trevor Scott, for bringing an interesting new take into my world. I never read some of the original Image titles, so I'm going to have to see if I can hunt down the next couple of issues of StormWatch. And if you've never read this stuff before, these original Image books, what they lacked in cohesiveness, I think is the word I'm trying to think of, but what they lacked in cohesiveness, they made up for in just balls-to-the-wall action, just explosive action that was almost like watching a Die Hard movie come across your screen. So Thanks for joining me on this retro review, and I've got more videos coming up, so we'll catch you then. Take care.